opportune time to show 'em this new power of mine. When woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katy Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katy Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show 'em this new power of mine. When woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katy Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katy Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show 'em this new power of mine. When woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katy Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katy Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show 'em this new power of mine. When woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katy Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katy Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show 'em this new power of mine. When woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katy Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When woods is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katy Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Wayland Woods is where we landed. We're Till Rose, the next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now. Waiting for the opportune time to show them this new power of mine. Wayland Woods is where we landed. We're Till Rose, the next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Wayland Woods is where we landed. We're Till Rose, the next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Unplugged Unfiltered. I am Brian Clements alongside Bob Clements, and Bob Clements got into a fight with a
spider monkey.
It is in a sling this week, but anyways, he got a little bit of surgery done to get your shoulder feeling better.
That rotator cuff, tendon reattached, some stuff.
Yeah, well, but the thing is you still showed up. You're still here.
Yeah.
You have to keep.
I still need the cash.
There you go. Well, you're not getting that from this podcast.
I got no workers comp. I didn't get hurt on the job. I got hurt with 72 years of age.
70,
is what hurt.
Yeah, you got hurt on all of the jobs prior.
Exactly.
So, but the crazy part is you grew up in a small town.
Yes,
the closest town to you, was Guilford. Yep. And that had a population of 56, or has a population of 56. And then the next closest town, Barnard, has a population of 170.
That was the metropolitan area.
That was the hot hub.
The town I grew up in, there are diners that have more seating capacity. Our whole town could have fit in a small diner.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Exactly. But you spent 40 years advising thousands of businesses across the country. You're one of the most respected consultants in the dealership industry. But you grew up in a place where most people had never met anyone who does what you do.
And they're still not sure what I do.
Yeah, exactly. and today we're not talking about processes or cash flow or customer service. We're talking about where all of that actually comes from. And so I want you to give everyone a little bit of a backstory of where you grew up, how what was life like when you were growing up? What was life like on the farm? Tell everybody a little bit about the farm.
Sure.
And
corporate punishment was a big deal where I grew up. So I tell people I had a German dad and an Irish mom, and so that helped. Growing up on a farm, we had a dairy farm. So I always laugh when Sandy and I got married. She had asked me one time, "What would you guys do on vacation?" And I go, "Milked cows."
Vacation? What's that?
Cows they get milked twice a day, 7 days a week. You don't get off for your birthday. You don't get off for Christmas. It doesn't matter. You got to do that. So that's where I grew up. I loved the farm. Didn't love it enough to stay.
Yeah.
But I loved being out there. But again, you didn't have an option. I guess I never knew. Maybe I did have an option, but you did what needed to be done. You did it as long as you had to do it to get it done. And then you just got back up and you just did it the next day. I have to credit a lot of what I've been able to do in business to growing up in this small little community on a farm, because you're just too stupid to know that there was another option. So that's just what you did.
Yeah.
Right? It's just what you did.
Well, and I think a lot of that as well comes to, you talked about milking cows, right? That is a process. That is
absolutely.
Not only is it a process, but it's a showing up every single day. Like you said, you don't get a vacation.
No,
you have to show up every single day. And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, they get into this rhythm, and they show up, but do they fully show up? Right? When you're milking a cow, you can't half-ass milk a cow.
No.
You've got to be on your game. You've got to, even if it's 4 o'clock in the morning, snowing, cold as shit.
It doesn't make any difference.
You've got to be there. But what was that moment where you go, okay, I'm gonna move from this into something else? I mean, I know you went to college. I know you did that thing, but what was your kind of catalyst from, okay, I'm moving from the farm and now I'm taking the next steps?
I think growing up on a farm, while most farmers wouldn't say they're entrepreneurs, every farmer's an entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So I grew up in an environment. Now, my mom and dad were not what we would think of in the terms of like, Mike and Cass and Gary Vee and some of the guys like that. But they still were taking risk and trying things and doing things, and money was tight. And so you had to scrape everything out of it that you could. We had a huge garden that seemed like 87 acres when I was a kid. It wasn't that big, but you grew everything. You were self-sufficient. I think that's the big thing. And so again, so I grew up in an environment where I knew how to be self-sufficient. I also grew up in an environment where you had to take responsibility. You had to get stuff done. You didn't have somebody. My dad didn't follow us around on every job to make sure it done. He just told you what to do and expected it to be done. And he was pretty critical of, he liked things done right. You know your grandfather.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Was a little hard to please. So you learn how to do things right, because if you didn't do it right, you're going to go back and redo it again. I've built a couple of different fences a couple of times because it wasn't to his specifications. But again, I think that's a part of what you just learn to do it. And then as got out of school, college, and then got into sales, because that was probably my big entrepreneur move. It doesn't sound like it would be an entrepreneur thing, but I went to work for a company that sold correcting typewriters. I think I've talked about this past. So this is back in the 70s, when a correcting typewriter was brand new to the marketplace. They sold for $1,800 back in the early 70s, about half the price of a Ford Mustang. And I had this opportunity to go to work for this big company as a salesperson, kind of in the Midwest for typewriters. And I got a 90-day guarantee. And then after that, I was on straight commission. Okay. So if you're in sales and you're on straight commission, you're an entrepreneur. Okay.
Absolutely.
Because you eat based upon whatever you produce, you get to eat a portion of that. And so that helped me gain confidence in myself. Okay. Because being on straight commission, like I say, I think I got like $1,500 a month for 90 days. And after that, I got 10% of everything I sold. So every machine I sold, I got $180, which back in the kind of mid to late 70s, that was a lot of money. And then I just see, man, okay, I can make money. And the harder I worked, the more doors I knocked on, all those things there, I just made more money. And I think that in itself, me being a straight commission salesperson, gave me the confidence to say, hey, I want to do something different. And that's kind of when I got in and started my company 40 plus years ago. Really as an accident. I had an opportunity to do something. I tell people, most of the success in life is that it starts as an accident that you turn into a success.
Absolutely. Well, and that's a lot of it, is right. You saw a need, you had a fire that was lit inside of you,
right?
And then you chased that. And then you saw, I mean, and that's, I think with entrepreneurs, is a lot of people go, well, I want to be an entrepreneur, but it's not all about the money. Well, when you start off, it's all about the money, right? Yeah. Okay. I mean, why start a business if it's not about the money? Go work for someone else, or
stop taking a paycheck from who you're working for now.
Yeah, exactly.
And just say, it's really not about the money. Here's your paycheck back. That doesn't mean that you have to be dominated by money. I mean, I like money. I tell people I've had it. I've not had it. It's better to have it. Because money gives you options and choices. I do a lot of speaking and stuff. And I was just in Atlanta last week before I had my shoulder work done. And, one of the guys came up and said, well, Bob, money's the root of all evil. And I go, well, actually, no, you're not a Bible scholar. Okay. Unfortunately, it's the love. It's the love of it. Money is a magnifier. I always tell people, when you think about money doesn't change who you are. It magnifies who you are. So if you're a nasty, evil human being, more money is going to make you more nasty and more evil.
Absolutely.
And if you're a good, kind, caring person that's compassionate, all more money is going to do is give you the ability to be good, kind, caring, and more compassionate. So I don't believe money changes people. I believe money is a magnifier.
Absolutely.
And if you like who you are and you're a good person, all you're going to do when you get more money is that's going to be magnified. You could do more things with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I mean, you had surgery on your shoulder this last week. Why the fuck are you here? Why didn't you just say, I'm going to take the week off? I'm going to just take a break?
Because I'm not a loser.
You're not a loser.
I've never, I mean, if you're on the farm, it doesn't matter. You know, you could have had appendix operation. You still need to be milking the next day. Just don't move too fast.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just the way I did. Like say, you know, I've been in this week on DSGs. I took Friday off because I had my shoulder surgery on Friday afternoon. And so obviously I took Friday off, got on, there's a drug called Oxycontin. I don't know if you're familiar with it. So I did that a couple times and I didn't like how I felt with it. So I got off of that after a couple of days and I just went to ibuprofen. But again, you know, and then I normally have Monday off anyway. So I don't normally work on Monday. So I work on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And anyway, so we had our dealer success group meeting yesterday and you know, I was bored. I told my wife, it's like, okay, God, I got to go do something here. The doctor said, "Oh, take it easy for a week." I was like, "Yeah, okay, that's fine."
No, not gonna happen.
I'm not gonna go build fence. But anyway, I mean, it's just kind of a part of who you are. I mean, you know, entrepreneurs. You know, I always tell people entrepreneurs get sick and they don't feel well like other people. They just don't bitch and complain about it. Right? Because they know they got a job to do. You got to show up and do the job. And I've just learned in life, you know, if you're not feeling good, if you get up and you get moving and you kind of get your brain focused on something else, you just start feeling better.
Absolutely.
I think most of, and not all of it, I don't mean to say that everybody that's ill it's a mental thing, but I think a lot of how you feel or your illness or things like that tend to evolve more about your mindset than anything else.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, so is that something that you would say was built in from the farm, or is that just something that most entrepreneurs have built into them? What would you say? Where does that come from?
You know, I think it's a little bit. I mean, I'm a big believer that your environment kind of sculpts who you are. You know, if you're in a crappy environment, doesn't mean you have to stay that way. But you know, I was blessed. Again, I had my parents were, you know, good parents, disciplinarians, but good parents. But I think again, I was brought up in that culture. I just didn't know anything different. You know, and so again, but I've modified it. I mean, it's not that okay. Well, this is how I was. Because I don't know if I just stayed how I was, I'd have got to be where I am today. But on the same token, you know, that gave me my start. And then I think a lot of what got me where I'm at today is I'm a constant student. I love to read. I love to listen to people that most everybody's smarter than me. So I you know, at 72, I'm still reading, looking, I'm pumped up about AI and AI agents and all the stuff you can do with that. You know, so I think again, part of it again, from my perspective, is just being you know, I love to learn. I'm a little bit of a contrarian, you know, so as I look at things, I look at what everybody else is doing and say, okay, well, everybody else is kind of going here. What would happen if we took just a 5-degree change off of that? And I think again, that's why a lot of dealers like what we do, because here's the ongoing, this is what everybody's saying. But when we listen to Bob, you know, Bob's got a little different take.
Absolutely.
You know, and that kind of fits well with the dealers I work with who are themselves entrepreneurs.
Well, and I think that is kind of moving into the next point, how you took what you did, or how you kind of grew up on the farm, what you had to learn, not only from that, but also like with pilot's license, right? You're always looking ahead. You know, you didn't have the GPSs of today. Right. And
you had water towers.
Every
small town has a water tower. And that my instructor says, if you get lost, just look for the water tower. It'll tell you what city you're near.
There you go.
So no, we didn't have GPSs. And you know, and even with my pilot's license, I was thinking as I was going to college, I had to have science credits. And so in this little town, Maryville, Missouri, which is where Northwest Missouri State University is at, which is where I went to school, which is about, I don't know, 10 miles away from the little town I grew up in. So I didn't want to get too far away from home. It was cheap.
There you go.
That was cheap, you know, and so I needed 2 science credits, and every day going to school, there's a little airport called Rankin Airport. It's a little private airport. I would drive by it and I'd see these planes taking off and on, small little planes. And when I got talking to my advisor about science credits, he goes, well, here's some different things you can do. And you can also take like an aviation class. You know, the folks that own the airport, the wife teaches ground school, and then you can go down and get that. And I said, if you do those things, that counts for all of your credits for science. I go, wow, that sounds fun to me. Okay, so that's really how I got my pilot's license.
Yeah.
I'm going like, okay, well, I got to do science anyway, and flying looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so that I did my ground school, then I went down and got my private license from Joe Rankin down there, and did it. You know, to me, again, I saw an opportunity. I could sit in a classroom and do crap, or I don't know, I can go down to this cool little airfield and
fly an airplane.
Yeah. So I thought, I think I want to do the airplane thing.
Yeah.
You know, since it all counts for my credit.
Absolutely.
You know, and back then, this is back 50 years ago, you know, so to get a pilot's license, an airplane, you rented an airplane with an instructor, and it was $15 an hour.
Yeah.
Including your fuel.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. So,
your fuel is not even close to $15 an hour.
No. So anyway, everything was right. But, you know, I like I say, it's a little bit of that. And I think this is what entrepreneurs have, that little bit of that 5-degree shift from normal.
Yeah.
You don't have to be 180 degrees from normal.
Absolutely.
Right. It's just that 5-degree shift from normal. You know, you think of an Elon Musk as an example, you know, and they're getting ready to go public with SpaceX. And right now, I just was listening to the news this morning, and they're looking at like maybe a $2 trillion valuation on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm a big fan of Elon Musk, and I'm invested in Elon Musk company, you know, X, or not X, but Tesla and stuff like that. But again, he's a guy, you know, that he doesn't think 180 degrees away from everything else.
Yeah.
He sees where everybody else is going, and he goes like, well, damn, why couldn't we reuse that rocket?
Absolutely.
Or damn, why couldn't we do this? Or why couldn't we make the car drive itself?
Yeah.
You know, so it's still a car.
Yep.
Okay. But again, so I think that's the thing with really successful entrepreneurs, whether you're an Elon Musk or you're a me or you're a you, it's kind of like you with your software with Triton. You know, why aren't people doing this? Why, you know, and I think that's the big piece of it is from an entrepreneurial standpoint, you don't have to be a totally opposite of everybody. What you have to do is be willing to say, well, this is where everybody else is at. What would happen if I looked at that 5 degrees different, either left or right? Right. And then what could I do going down that path? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and it's interesting because, you know, one of the things that you said is you're constantly learning, right? You're constantly listening to people who are smarter than you. And it takes me back to a video I was watching of someone who was interviewing Elon Musk at SpaceX headquarters. And this guy is sitting there, and Elon showing him these rockets, and he goes, well, why aren't you guys doing this with these rockets to, you know, you guys are doing it on this side of things, but you're not doing it on these. And he goes, I never really thought about that. 1 second. And he walks off. And that is actually part of now the propulsion system of all of their new rockets.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those, he was so, because he could have been like, okay, well, you're a YouTube podcast interviewer, you know, like, but he was like, you're right. You know, and he was so open to, he's ready to learn. He's ready for outside ideas because he understands he's not the smartest person in the room.
No.
But, and I think
he's got to be pretty close to the smartest.
No shit.
Okay. I'm not going to take a whole lot away from him from intelligence.
But he brings in those, all of those people who fill in the gap. And we've talked about this with all of the guests that we've had, Cass and Mike, you know, it's find your gap, know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And then find someone who knows that. And I think that's part of,
and then shut the F up
and listen to them.
Tell people, dear God, you know, if somebody's giving me advice, I don't sit there and argue with them with the advice. I may not agree with everything they say, but I'm not going to argue with them. They were kind enough to give me their time and their thoughts.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to take it back and think, okay, you know, I don't know that will work, but that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the stupidness of people. They say, well, that guy gave me advice, but it was just stupid advice. Well, not everything that he said was stupid.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't mean everything that he said or she said was correct at 100 degrees, but you're an idiot if you couldn't find an idea, a thought in something they said.
Absolutely. Well, and again, it's taking that, right, and adjusting it maybe 5%.
Yeah,
because you can take an idea that someone has, and you've said it before, I've said it before. There's no such thing as a new idea.
No, they don't exist.
It's taking something that someone else has done, has come up with, has invented, and shifting it by 5%.
Yeah.
Shifting it by 80%, shifting it to a different market, to a different niche. Like there's so many things that an entrepreneur can do, but you have to be able to see outside of the blinders that you think of like with a horse, right? A horse,
Exactly.
you put a working horse, put blinders on it, and it can't see to the left, to the right. It sees straight.
Right.
But once you open those blinders up and you can start seeing, you realize that there's this big world out there, more than a town of 56 people.
Right.
And then, that gives you the ability. It's like when you finally did go to college, right? And then you got the opportunity to do airplanes, right? Your world went from ground level to
Exactly
being able to see those planes, what, 5,000 max, 10,000
feet.
Yeah.
Probably the planes I were flying. I mean, you can go to 10,000 feet. You stop breathing at 11.
Yeah.
But it took you in those small planes. It took you a long time to get to 10,000 feet because they were not turbocharged. But you're probably flying, I don't know, 3,000 to 5,000 feet.
Yeah. But you went from ground level and you got up to that 5,000 feet. And I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs is. You have to continually show up. You have to climb.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's not just I showed up for a month and my business failed.
Right.
Well, yeah, no shit, it failed because you only showed up for a month.
Showed up for a month.
You can't quit an idea a month in.
No.
Now, when I say that, if you do testing, say on TikTok, on social media, and you get 100% negative, maybe quit on that or pivot from that idea and change it to something else. But if you are a true entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, your entrepreneurial journey doesn't die with a product. It dies with a lack of motivation, with a lack of showing up. And you have to show up every single day.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite channels is the History Channel because I was a history major in college. But on the History Channel, my favorite things is cars that built America, food that built America. And right now I'm going through season 7 of Foods That Built America. And I tell anybody, if you're an entrepreneur, you've got to watch History Channel's Foods That Built America.
Absolutely.
They've got 7 seasons. And you see like people like Heinz. I just watched one with Anheuser-Busch. So the one I just watched was season 6. It was on beer.
Yeah.
And Bush was given the beer company from his father-in-law because it was failing.
Yeah.
He had all this other business he was doing, making a ton of money on. It says, hey, Augusta, I believe was his name, or whatever the name was. He said, you run this and see if you can make money. Okay. Now this is back in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
And, beer was very, very local kind of thing. And so, but ultimately, if you know anything about Budweiser, okay, he became in about, I don't know, 10 years, he came up with refrigerated cars to move beer in. He was selling beer because everything was kind of regional. He created a beer that he thought Americans would like. Yeah. Even though he was from, Germany and all that stuff that was a little stouter. So he did all this stuff, but he was constantly innovating and changing. And if you get a chance to watch it, now he started with money. And I know some people say, well, if you're going to be in business, you got to start with money. I will tell you that 90% of the entrepreneurs out there had nothing. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
They had nothing. When people say, well, yeah, I'd start my business, but I wasn't born with money. Well, hell, 90% of the entrepreneurs, they weren't born with money. Yeah. Right. I mean, we didn't have any money. I grew up on a farm. Okay? Yeah. My mom and dad were upper poor, I would say. They weren't upper middle class. They were upper poor. But anyway, but as you watch those shows, you see these guys, and it was interesting with him because he had this huge empire. I mean, they were killing it. Yeah. And then temperance came along. Yeah. Okay. And the United States voted that people couldn't drink anymore. Mm-hmm. Okay. So at that point, he ended up passing it on to his son, who ended up doing it, but he died of a heart attack. Ultimately, his son took it. It took him 13 years for the United States to go back from temperance back there. But they were making boats. They were making anything they could just to keep in business. Yeah, absolutely. And he finally figured out, well, hell, I can't sell beer, but I have all these ingredients that makes beer. Yeah. I'll just sell people the ingredients and they can make their own beer at home. Yeah. And that's how he kept his company afloat. Yeah. So the government didn't keep you from making your beer. You just couldn't buy it. You just couldn't distribute it or buy beer or any other thing from that. But it's that kind of 5 degree. Everybody else, I mean, there was thousands of breweries. Yeah. And I think there was only 13 left in the whole United States after Prohibition ended. Yeah. And he was the big one. But again, he just kept trying shit. Right. Yeah. As Cass and Mike say, he kept constantly making an adjustment, making an adjustment. He finally came to the point, it's like, well, hell, I have all this barley, all this hops, all this yeast. How about we package this and sell it in stores so people can make their own beer?
Yeah.
And that's how he kept his company going.
Yeah. Well, and it's again, it's changing that trajectory. It's pivoting constantly.
It's the pivot.
Well, and one of the things that you said, it's right. A lot of people go, well, if I had money, it would be easier. I always, and we'll go back to the airplane analogy, right? Every plane starts on the ground. It doesn't matter whether you're a single engine prop plane or a commercial airliner.
Yeah.
They all start on the ground.
Exactly.
They all have to climb, so it doesn't matter the money. You have to climb. You're going to experience turbulence. There's not a plane out there that doesn't experience turbulence. And yes, there's benefits to being in a commercial airplane compared to a 4-seat,
my first plane I learned to fly was a 2-seater Cessna 150.
There you go.
Yeah. So there was 2 of us in it. We both weighed about 200 pounds, which was about 100 pounds over capacity for the plane if you had it full of fuel. But again, to your point, Brian, everything starts on the ground.
Yeah.
Every new business starts on the ground. Nobody gets to start high in the air unless, again, you were given something that was already going. Then your job is not to screw it up and make it fail.
Yeah.
But which is what happens many times with second generation and third generation businesses. Not on all of them.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of dealers that have transitioned their business over to their kids because their kids have been involved in the business, and the business is doing as well, if not better, because they've got new ideas and new things to do with that. But again, every plane has to get to a certain speed to take off.
Yeah.
Okay, there's this moment of velocity where you call it rotate.
Yeah.
And every plane, again, has to do it. Even big planes, that I don't know specifically, but I'd say a larger jet, you're probably having to go 120 to 130 mile an hour.
Yeah.
On a small plane, you're probably doing 55 or 60 mile an hour, but you still have to get moving.
Yeah.
And then you got to have enough courage to pull back.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let the plane do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
You just don't want to keep it on the runway because you will eventually run out of runway.
Runway.
But I go back again, but then once you get it up in the air, then it's designed to do what it does. I would tell people planes are made to fly. They're not made to land.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to theoretically make a plane want to crash in a controlled way because they're built to fly.
Yeah.
But again, it takes a certain amount of speed. It takes a certain amount of courage. It takes a little bit of training to do it, but you don't learn in the beginning. I had an instructor that was teaching me how to fly.
Yeah.
He didn't say, well, Bob, get in and give it your best shot.
give her a shot.
Give it a shot. I was willing to listen to a guy sitting in the seat next to me to say, okay, this is what we need to do. You see that dial? Keep your eye on that.
Yeah.
Because when it hits that point, you're going to pull back on the yoke and this plane is going to start to fly, but don't pull back too far, because then you'll stall, you'll lose your speed, and then you'll crash back on the ground again. But again, so I listened to him, right? And then you do that for about 10 hours, and then they say, okay, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Okay, because there is a point there where the instructor does get out of the plane.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be with you all the time. And I think, again, that's the challenge when you see people that are starting a business. They before I would start a business today, and I say this, I already kind of know how to do it, so I wouldn't maybe be a good example. But if you're a brand new entrepreneur and you're thinking about, I kind of want to start a business, the first thing you need to do before you invest any time or energy in it is spend some time with a person that already has a business going.
Yeah.
And say, hey man, I don't want anything for it. Can I shadow you for like a week?
Yeah.
Just let me shadow you. Let you be my flight instructor.
Yeah.
Let me ask you questions and stuff like this. Then I would go out and get it started. I think if you just start it without any instruction at all, then you're probably going to crash.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it with somebody that can give you some guidance, and you and I've talked about this many times about how important it is for an entrepreneur, young entrepreneurs, to be around successful older entrepreneurs, and listen to them, take them to lunch, ask them questions. Their business may not be exactly what yours is, but 90% of business is marketing and people.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what the business is.
Yeah.
The people are going to be your biggest expense and your biggest headache.
Yeah.
And how the hell do you market yourself? And regardless if you run a jewelry store or you run a place that does meats, butcher shop, it's basically all the same.
Absolutely.
The rest of it's just tuning those things in. But again, I think, being around people that can give you instruction, and then again, shut the hell up and listen.
Yeah.
If every dealer that I talked to over all the years would have just listened to everything that I told them to do, right? I've been pretty successful at this, right? But a lot of them go like, oh, Bob, that won't work for us because you don't understand my market, my people, whatever. And it's like, okay, loser's limp, right?
Yeah.
You know, you think you know more. And I'm not saying that I'm brilliant at everything. I've just had a hell of a lot of experience in 40 years helping dealerships do turnarounds.
Well, and again, it comes back to that, you know, when they go, well, it's not going to work for my market. And when I was in dealerships all the time, it's one of those, okay, it might not work for your market exactly, but what is that 5 degree of change?
Exactly.
How do I adjust what I'm doing for 5 degrees? And that will take me to a different destination. I mean, going back to a plane, right? If you've got a 100-mile journey in a plane and you change your direction by 5 degrees, how far off are you going to be from your original airport that you were going to land at?
About 10 miles.
Yeah. Right. I mean,
there's not going to be an airport where you're currently at,
you know, but that's the thing is a 5 degree shift over a period of time makes a massive difference. And if you look at, like you said, talking to other entrepreneurs, talking to other business owners who've been successful, maybe it's again, not in the same market that you're going after, but say, I see this process. We talk about it all the time. We talk about McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, all of these processes. And everyone's like, well, how does that relate to us? Because you look at that and say, how do I shift that process 5%? How do I change that mentality in my employee 5% to fit what we're doing? You know, it's McDonald's. It's everything is perfectly organized. Everything is done on a very specific time frame. Everything's done the exact same way. Parts department, same thing. Everything needs to be fully organized. Your counter people need to know exactly where to go, when to go to find a part so that your transaction or your turnaround times are, you know, efficient.
Yeah. I mean, I could take anybody that's been involved with a McDonald's as an example. I could take them into any dealership and I'd say, I need you to look at our parts process and improve it. And you would say, well, what the hell do they know about parts? They know about process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So anybody that understands process can look at anything and go, that doesn't flow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, but that's how we do it. Well, I understand that, but that doesn't flow. So I think that's the other thing is thinking that you can't take this concept and move it over to another industry because that's just not true at all. You know, and again, it's that understanding that it is always about process. You know, people are about process. I was on a meeting this morning before I came over here to the studio, and I was talking to a young man who's got a marine service business down in Houston, Texas, just joined us. And as we were talking about things, some of the different things that he needs to work through, his challenge is he's got 4 technicians, and he said, I just can't get him to listen to me.
Yeah.
And I said, well, they don't listen to you because they don't respect you.
Yeah.
Right. And he goes, well, what do you mean they don't respect me? And he says, I pay them. And I go, well, that doesn't buy respect.
Yeah.
I said, is there things that you have told them over the last 6 months or year that you never followed through on? He goes, yeah, you know, I'm guilty as charged. And I said, so you've got to earn their respect. And that means that you got to say, okay, we're going to the moon. This is how we're going to get to the moon.
Yeah.
And you guys, I want you guys to be a part of it. I said, you got to go back and you got to earn that respect. Because once they respect you, they will either follow you or you'll need to get rid of them and find somebody else that can do. But again, I said, your problem is you've broken that trust. You've broken that respect because you promised them something and you didn't deliver. And he says, well, I can't always deliver. And I said, but the moment you know you can't deliver, you sit back down with your team again and say, hey, I know I promised you this. Yeah. This is what's going on. So it's that transparency again with your team, because your team will forgive you. But if you just say, oh, well, it ain't going to happen, just ignore them. Yeah. And they're not going to trust you anymore. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a piece of it. You got to have those people trust you.
Absolutely. Well, as we're wrapping up, Bob, of course, the one thing as we're wrapping up, so a person is watching, right? They feel just one.
Okay. All right. That's great.
But
that takes the pressure off me.
Whether they grew up in a big city, whether they grew up in a small town, you know, they want to be an entrepreneur. They're committed to showing up. What is your one word of encouragement to them? Not advice. What is your one word of encouragement to that person who's listening, who maybe is coming from a small town or maybe coming from a big city? What's your word of encouragement to them as they start their entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I go back again, where you come from. It has nothing to do with your ability to be successful.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's the first thing I get out of your mind. Well, I came from a little town. Well, hell, so did I.
Yeah.
Or I came from a really big town. Well, hell, there's a lot of people.
So did Cass and Mike.
Exactly right. So I tell people, so where you came from has no bearing on your ability to be successful in business. What you grew up in really has no bearing. Yeah. I was blessed. You know, I was born into a family that were farmers. So
Yeah.
we worked hard. But even if you weren't, you can still change that. I'm not anywhere close to what I was when I left the farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have changed and grown and been open to ideas. So what you grew up in, your environment, well, it does have some impact on you. You have the ability to change that. So where you grew up has no bearing on it. How you grew up has no bearing on it. Just freaking show up.
Yeah.
Make a decision that, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to listen to other people that have done this. I mean, if it were me, we talk about Mike and Cass all the time, but if I were starting a brand new business, I mean, holy crap, that shoveling shit book should be, I would start with that book.
Absolutely.
Okay. Start with that. Cause that's that kind of the cheat codes, as they say, to do it, and I think once you buy the book, you're in there. They have like a group that gets together. I forget what it's called.
The Founders Farm.
Founders Farm. And it costs nothing. You bought the freaking book.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're on there with other people. So that would be me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not join it. I know you used to be. I don't know if you're still on it a lot, but I know you used to be on it all the time. And it's other entrepreneurs and totally different businesses, but you're all talking about the same thing. So those are the things I would do. You don't have to spend a lot of money, and it's not about the money anyway. I go back again. People that are successful in business, I'm going to say 90% of them, they didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Right. And they got sick and tired of being sick and tired. They got sick and tired of being poor.
Yeah.
And they decided, okay, this is a do-it-yourself project. I'm going to do it. And every day I'm going to show up.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at things a little bit to the 5 degree off.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to do. And that's how I'm going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, I encourage everyone to look to their 5 degrees, change your perspective, change how you're doing things, just like Joel did with Nutcase. I am going to crack. I don't know if you want one. These are cold. I did cool these ones. These are cold. So if you want a cold one,
I do.
Which flavor you want?
You just take me. I like that Japanese
strawberry.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, this is great. If you haven't tried Nutcase,
go on to Nutcase. Go on to Nutcase's website. If you guys want a discount, you can actually use the discount code BCLEM, Clem. You get a discount. Joel's got us set up with our own discount code. So if anybody wants to try it, you're more than
this is awesome.
Use it. Yeah.
This is awesome.
But again, what she did is she took something that she was doing
at home
all the time.
In a Vitamix.
Okay.
You don't talk about any more entrepreneurial starting out that way.
And then she shifted it every time they needed to update or upgrade their flavors, right? The original flavor profile is not the flavor profile. They've constantly made those 5 degree changes, and she's changing the nut milk kind of perspective. It's everyone's had almond milk, everyone's had this, but this is super hydrating. It's super good for you, and it tastes good.
My shoulder already feels
I bet
it does.
Our problem is we didn't, because it does have brain health. We should have drank this
before not at
podcast.
the end of it. Okay,
but
we'll load up next week before and get our brain health.
But
it is awesome.
You guys have to try Nutcase. Again, if you do want to try it, use discount code BCLEM on their website, and that'll get you a discount. But yeah, we appreciate everyone here. We appreciate all of the support that we have. And again, all of the support that we have, we give that right back to everybody here. So if you ever run into an issue, if you have a question, Bob talks about it all the time, find someone who's smarter than you and then listen. Not saying we're smarter than you, but
it's not hard for me to find people smarter than me. So.
But at the end of it, we have lived through a lot of experiences with businesses. We've helped a lot of businesses. I can almost say with confidence that there's not many situations we've seen in a dealership or that we haven't seen in a dealership anymore. So
there's
and again, just because Bob is a dealership consultant, just because I was a dealership consultant, doesn't mean we don't understand every aspect of all of the other businesses, because a process, a idea, a business fundamentally is all the same. And so we're here to help. At the same point, if you do want shoveling shit but cannot afford shoveling shit,
let us know.
Let us know. We will get you
a
copy. We'd love to get you guys connected with the founding community that is shoveling shit in Cass and Mike. So with that, we hope that you all have a great week. Enjoy the rest of this day, and we will see you guys live next week right here on Unplugged Unfiltered.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now. waiting for the opportune time to show 'em this new power of mine. When words is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Gracie Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When words is where we landed, we're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally